Welcome. Welcome, everyone. It's Angelo Robles. And if you're watching live, a special thank you. It is a Tuesday evening. It's 7 o'clock Eastern Time. I thought I gave an interesting insight at the connection of geopolitics and AI yesterday in a live. But I think I left a lot unsaid. And I've been thinking about it, and I wanted to provide much more context. One that from many family office commentators, you're probably not used to hearing. I've been thinking about it. I have some show notes, and I think this is going to be very, very important. I love the opportunity to share it with you. The real game. Why Iran isn't about Iran. It's money, oil, energy, and yes, AI. And I'm going to explain. And what it means for your portfolio. A family office briefing. Let me tell you what this conversation is about. Iran. The part that it's not about. It's not, from my perspective, about Trump liberating the Iranian people. No. It's not primarily about ideology or religion or even, a surprise to some of you, even about nuclear weapons. And respectfully, it's just not about freedom and democracy spreading across the Middle East. Now, I want to spend a moment on each of those, sure, because they are part of the picture, but definitely not the most important part. People push back, smart people. So the nukes question. Yes, of course, the nuclear dimension matters. I don't think any person wants Iran with deliverable nuclear weapons. But ask yourself, if Iran's nuclear program were the primary drivers, why has this been festering, well, really effectively for decades, with episodic urgency and, of course, episodic neglect? The nuclear issue is really a permission structure. It's a justification that polite diplomacy, well, kind of requires. The actual engine is economic, as most wars and really everything is. That really is the foundation and always has been. Iran getting a nuke, sure, it's bad. Iran getting a nuke while locking up Gulf energy flows and feeding China's energy and AI machine, well, that could be a catastrophe. The nuke in that example is practically almost a symptom. Stay with me. The disease is geopolitical energy control. Strip out the nuclear headline and the underlying logic, it's identical. So the regime change question. Would Trump love a historic win? The fall of the Ayatollahs, a free Iran, a democratic Middle East domino? Sure, great optics, I guess legacy building, but it's a nice to have. Absolute for a so-called victory, not needed to have. Don't confuse, from my perspective, the press release with the strategic memo. The Iranian people, and I say this with genuine respect for those who want change, they're just not uniformly crying out for revolution. The polling, well, as always, that's complicated. Many Iranians want economic relief, sanctions lifted, want access to more of the global economy, sure. That's not the same as wanting a regime change, which carries enormous risk of chaos, civil conflict, and a power vacuum, well, that China would gladly fill the next morning. So back to regime change. Nice, sure, not necessary. What is necessary? What the U.S. absolutely requires is Iran contained, the Strait open, and Gulf, oh, here's the big one, Gulf investment flows uninterrupted into the American economic engine. That's, I'm telling you, the mission. Whether the Ayatollahs stay or go is, to some degree, very much secondary. I watch some of the same geopolitical commentators that you do. Sometimes it actually ruins my thinking, but I do it. I read and watch Ian Bremmer, John Mearsheimer, Jeffrey Sachs, Peter Zeihan. I do like Victor Davis Hanson. Now, sure, they're serious thinkers and they do bring value. But here's what almost none of them fully grasp. This is a battle for the future of artificial intelligence. And the fuel that powers it. This is, as almost everything, effectively within the confines of power, is about money, oil, energy, and that does take us to AI. At the center of it all, one question: who controls the intelligence infrastructure, well, not only for the next year or 5 years, and dominance maybe for decades or longer to come? So this comes down to the US or China. That is the real war. And Iran, the Strait of HORMUZ, is one of the, we could debate Taiwan in the future, but from an energy perspective, is one of the critical battlefields in it. Now, I do want to go back to what I define as the commentators and maybe give some credit where credit is due. I want to sharpen iron with iron, have my ideas tested. I am not always correct. I'm not looking to win or be right. I might be in it to make money. Sure. I'm in it to learn more, to make better tactical decisions. I did mention Victor Davis Hanson, military historian, classicist, senior fellow at Hoover, understands for sure civilizational conflict. He understands that weakness invites aggression. He understands American exceptionalism. I respect his work and I do learn from him. He comes, I think, among those at least I noted, the closest to kind of seeing the full picture. Peter Zeihan, fascinating on demographics and supply chains. If you want to understand why geography is destiny, Zeihan is somewhat essential. But he misses the AI variable, like, to me, practically entirely. Now, Ian Bremmer runs, many of you know, Eurasia Group, sharp on political risk, very establishment, very much a globalist. He sees geopolitics, to me, through the lens of multilateral institutions that, frankly, no longer hold the same weight that they once did. Mearsheimer, a great offensive realist. Framework, the great powers are always competing. Correct, I agree. But his conclusion that the US is overreaching is where I part ways. Sometimes the overreach is a strategy. Sachs, as in Jeffrey Sachs, smart, to me, deeply left-leaning, deeply idealistic, and constantly underestimates America's self-interest as a legitimate force. I get it. You're not all going to agree with me on this. For global stability. Now, there is someone else who's grown in stature, and I've enjoyed his podcast interviews. Andrew Bustamante, former CIA officer, now popular, very popular commentator, a founder of Everyday Spy, significant following, and generally incredibly interesting on intelligence as kind of a tradecraft and how covert operations actually work. Respect his background. But here is my issue with Bustamante, specifically on Iran. He gets the spy game. He gets the tradecraft for sure. He understands the state actors, the proxy warfare, but he still, to me, misses, and I don't know if there's any such thing as former CIA, but misses the central thesis. He analyzes Iran through the lens of intelligence competition and what I would call more regional power plays. Now, there's important context, sure, but he does not connect the thorough line to oil, energy infrastructure, and really, and we're going to get to all this, the AI race, the US and China competition that makes all of this matter on civilizational scale. Now, he is reading the tactics, I understand, but I don't think, my perspective, that he's reading the strategy. And look, it's not an insult. Bustamante's value is in the operational layer. How operations get run, how influence gets projected, very important. How intelligence gets weaponized, for sure. That is real, it's real. And it's very useful. But when you get to understand why those operations are being run, what the end game actually is, you need to zoom out to the economic and technological competition. And that is where he and most others goes quiet. I'm not looking to be in an echo chamber. I don't think I'm always right. Of course, I could be wrong, or parts of it or the order of it mixed up in my perspective here. But coming at it with a level of intellect and putting some reasoning and forming my own thoughts and sharing them with you, right or wrong, is, again, as I mentioned many times, since geopolitics is such an important part of really everyone, especially investors in family offices, does not get discussed enough about within our community. Now, here's what ties all of them together. They analyze the people that I mentioned, geopolitics, through a pre-AI lens. Now, Hanson, again, gets a little close here, but even he is still primarily a historian, looking at the past of civilizational conflict rather than forward-looking analyst of technological supremacy. The variable that rewrites every assumption that changes the entire board game is artificial intelligence and the energy required to run it at scale. Let me give you a framework that was in my subtitle, and I said, and I'm going to say it again, it's important. And this comes down, of course, to wars. It's economic. It's about money, oil, energy, and AI. They're not four separate topics, not in today's world. They are a single chain. And to give you some context of that in terms of how that chain works, and please, comments, questions, bring them on. I don't feel I have all the answers. Oil generates money. Money funds energy infrastructure. Energy, massive industrial scale energy, powers AI. And superior AI in this world and the very near future, it just wins. It wins economically, militarily, geopolitically, full stop. You want to know why the United States cares so deeply what happens in the Persian Gulf? I mean, honestly, like I said, it's not because Washington wants to spread democracy per se, not because of some altruistic mission. I mean, that would be nice, right? But that's just not a reality. It's because whoever controls Middle Eastern energy flows controls a critical choke point in the race to build the world's most powerful AI infrastructure. Oh, this goes so deep. Now, many of you know I've covered AI very intensely. This is not the time to go over quite the nuances in an hour or two of the impact of AI, but I think you're getting it now. Energy is the new uranium, and AI is kind of the new nuclear weapon. The data centers being built right now by Microsoft, Google, XAI, Amazon, they are not running on wishes. They require electricity at scale that would have seemed fictional 10 years ago. Gigawatts, tens of gigawatts, eventually hundreds. Now, China does understand this. This is exactly why China has been so aggressive in securing energy relationships across Africa, Central Asia, parts of LATAM, and yes, obviously, in the Middle East. Now, the United States our government does understand this, which is why, and I mean this precisely, protecting the Gulf states is no longer just about oil prices at the pump. It's about protecting the trillions of dollars of investments, those at least commitments that those Gulf states are making into, oh, here's the big one, American companies, American AI companies, American VC. Now, let me go a little bit. We're going to tie this all in. This is a little bit of a enjoy a cup of tea, but I promise it won't be that much longer. The Strait of Hormuz. Let's talk about a body of water that, I mean, honestly, most Americans, most people wouldn't be able to identify or spot on a map. The Strait of Hormuz, 21, 22 miles wide at its narrowest point. And through those, whatever, 20 plus miles, approximately 20% of the world's oil supply goes through every single day. Saudi Arabia's exports, UAE's exports, Kuwait, Iraq, Qatar, which, by the way, holds some of the world's largest natural gas resources. All of it passes through the strait. And as I wrap this up, probably about 10 minutes, we'll get to the risk mitigation and investment part of it. Iran's coastline runs along the northern edge of that strait. Iran has made explicitly, repeatedly, the threat and the impact that would have of closing it. If that strait closes, like even for 72 hours, oh my God, oil may go up to $200 a barrel. Global supply chains seize supply and demand. Every AI data center on the planet that is running on natural gas feels it. And stock markets that certainly don't like this will melt. The Strait of Hormuz is not just an oil choke point. You got to think deeper than that. In this age of AI, it's worse. It's an intelligence choke point. This is why every American military presence in the Gulf region is not about, well, you could debate this one, not about policing the world. It's about rational, self-interested protection of the economic engine that will fund America's technological supremacy, which in the world of AI and what that means to everything is incredibly big, huge. Iran, Gulf states, and the AI investment flood. Let me provide more context on this. And I am shocked. I mean, come on, I'm not that smart. Like, I am shocked there's not more people at least debating these and picking up these. If I'm doing it, others I'm sure are as well. Where are they, at least in the family office world? So here's where, to me, it really gets interesting. And this is where most commentators, to me, completely missed a story. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, these Gulf states are not sitting only on their oil wealth anymore. They're deploying it aggressively, strategically into meaning that wealth, that massive trillions of dollars, their sovereign wealth funds, into mainly American technology. Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, over $700 billion, heavily into American AI, tech infrastructure, obviously venture capital. Abu Dhabi, same story, billions more than that flowing into Silicon Valley, into AI labs, and into US energy infrastructure. And the UAE is building its own AI ecosystem in partnerships with Microsoft, Google, and OpenAI. These nations are effectively making a generational bet, convert petro wealth into intelligence before the oil era ends. When a nation invests hundreds of billions more into, in this case, our US economy, what does the US do? They protect that. It's not even really foreign policy, it's just business. Iran watches this, and I'm assuming with their neighbors there in the Gulf, it makes them furious. Iran wants to dominate power in the Middle East, that's for sure. It has a long, legitimate historical claim to regional influence, Persian civilization, Shia geopolitical outreach through Hezbollah, Syria, Yemen, Iraq, etc. But its neighbors, the Gulf states, are effectively buying American protection through their investment dollars. Welcome again to money and how the world works. They are tying American economic interest directly into their security. Iran sees Saudi Arabia and the UAE investing, again, what, trillions, at least committed into American AI, into the American AI ecosystem, into the companies and infrastructure of a nation that will either help or hinder Iran's nuclear ambitions. So this is non-incidental. This is existential as a threat deemed to Iran to their regional dominance. Now, what did we just see? Negotiations or negotiational pressure, the threat before this happened of US military action and warships in the Gulf. Not idealism, it's a protection racket in the best, most rational sense of that term. The US is protecting its investors, and its investors are protecting their futures. Now, I did want to come back because I think this is really underlying much of this. China, the China variable. Let's zoom out a little further, because none of this makes sense without having an understanding of what I define as the China variable. Think about what the US has done over the past several years with for sure, what, years, months in some cases, with strategic intent. Venezuela. The US applied massive pressure on Maduro's regime. Why? Because Venezuela has the largest proven, or among the largest proven oil reserves in the world. And China was moving aggressively to lock in those cheap oil flows in our, meaning the US's backyard, effectively. The US wanted to disrupt, which for now, I guess they did, that relationship. Iran, decades of sanctions, now renegotiating pressure. Why? Because China and Iran signed a 25-year economic partnership, energy, infrastructure, strategic alignment. And the US, whether you like it or not, correctly identifies this as a threat. Now, Saudi Arabia, the Abraham Accords, the Abraham normalization push, the US-Saudi relationship, kind of despite all these complications. Why? Because China has been actively courting Saudi Arabia as well as an alternative trading partner, including pricing oil in yuan. So the thorough line is not a democracy promotion. The thorough line is not human rights. The throw line is starving China of the energy resources it needs to build properly and quickly enough its own AI supremacy. And that through eventual fusion energy, robotics, the impact on labor, capitalism, everything, everything, military, space will be probably dominated by the first one that obtains that level of real deep AGI into ASI. Every move the US makes in the Middle East is a move in on that US-China AI race, every single one. Now, China needs energy to, let's go with the word, to train models. China needs energy to run inference at scale. China needs chip manufacturing, which the US has tried to choke through export controls. But chips are nothing without power. Yesterday, I discussed sand. And look what sand over billions of years with human ingenuity has become. Effectively, sand to intelligence is incredible with AI. So cut off China's reliable energy access, limit their chip acquisition, slow their AI development. That is a strategy. And Iran, good or bad, you decide, is simply a piece on that chessboard. Now, what does this mean for you? All right, let's begin to take this home. Let's assume you manage significant capital. You manage generational wealth. You have obligations to your families, your principals, your legacy portfolios. You don't have the luxury of getting this wrong. So what does everything that I laid out mean for you? So first, I'm going to focus a little bit on risk after this lovely sip of sparkling water. Middle East tension is no longer a geopolitical tail risk. It's a central scenario you must price into your energy infrastructure and tech holdings. If the Strait of HORMUZ is further threatened, even briefly, you will, as we're seeing somewhat now, energy prices will spike. Supply chain disruptions already at our doorstep, and significant volatility in equities. This is not hyperbole. Model it, stress test it. Make sure your liquidity, maybe that's the emphasis here, your liquidity runway can handle what could be a multi-month shock. Concentrated exposure to US tech names that are deeply dependent on uninterrupted energy supply and Gulf state sovereign wealth inflows. Again, we're not hearing enough about that. That's a risk factor that you should be explicitly tracking. Now, I guess you have to look at it as well through a lens of opportunity from an investing perspective. The Gulf state sovereign wealth funds are not the only ones moving. Smart family offices should be or could be moving alongside of them. Think again in terms of really the AI infrastructure, the data centers, and one day, according to Elon, sooner than we think, and that may change this play, data centers in space, power generation, particularly nuclear, natural gas, and next generation transmission. These are not speculative themes. These are structural allocations, obviously, for the coming years. Now, back to a lot of the core point. Energy to AI is the single most important secular trend in capital markets today. And yeah, Wall Street's having a little bit of a hard time catching up to this. The companies, they really whiffed 2 or 3 years ago on NVIDIA. The companies that are building the physical infrastructure of artificial intelligence, the land, the power, the cooling, the fiber, think deeper than just on the surface. These are the railroad companies of the 1870s. If you're not positioned there, relatively speaking, you will be left behind. And the Gulf state inflows into USAI, well, that's a signal when sovereign wealth funds, for now, committing trillions of dollars, we'll see if they start to backtrack out of their fear. When they're funneling that level of capital into American AI infrastructure, they're not doing it out of friendship. They're doing it because they see the same thing that I'm telling you right now, that AI supremacy is the defining economic force of the next several decades. And the United States is potentially positioned to win it. It really is the US or China. Third, on positioning your thinking, stop analyzing geopolitical events in isolation. Stop asking, what does this mean for oil prices today, tomorrow, this quarter? Stop it. Start asking, what does this mean for the AI race, for US versus China competitiveness, for the energy infrastructure required, and it's a huge amount, required to sustain American technological supremacy. That framework will make you right more than any single geopolitical analyst, including the ones that I mentioned at the top of this. In the end, you're always being spun. Everyone practically has a reason for their direction, and we get anchored, including me. Let me leave you with this. The narrative you will hear on most networks, from most think tanks, from most of the commentators that I named, is that the Iran situation is complicated. It involves ideology, religion. It involves historical grievances that go back centuries. And of course, it's broadly true. It's not the leading factor here. The ideology matters at the margins. The Iranian people's desire for a different future, I think it's real. Although polling consistently shows, like I said, most Iranians prioritize stability and economic improvement really over a revolution. And that's where there is an ignorance of American people and people of the West. Have you been to the Middle East? Have you traveled these countries to really understand that? But the people making these decisions in Washington, Riyadh, Beijing, Tehran, they're not primarily motivated by ideology. They are absolutely motivated by, well, of course, power, resources, by the long game. The long game right now, it's so clear to me. It's AI. And the fuel, literally and figuratively, that feeds it. The United States is simply doing what great powers do, whether you like it or not. It's securing its energy interest. It is protecting its investors. It's weakening its primary rival. It's positioning itself to win the most consequential technological race by far in human history. And the majority of you, I just don't think it's being understood, possibly because the facts, as I'm outlining them and forming my thesis, is just not getting out there enough. I don't know. Good times create weak people. Bad times create strong people. Maybe we've gotten too comfortable. We complain about everything. Do we have that frontier toughness that we used to have? You get one day or 30 days that something goes wrong, the price goes up a little bit, and you kind of give up. And yes, AI is changing everything. You have to learn it. You do have to be more entrepreneurial. These are all things we'll cover more in detail in the future. You can agree with the methods or not. You can debate the ethics, very debatable. But as stewards of capital, your job is to see it clearly. See the game, not the narrative, and position accordingly. So again, I had my little sequelatory, which had brief elements of this last night. Some of you reached out and felt you wanted more. I got a really busy week this week, next week, and for a part of the following week, I'm traveling, and I didn't want to sit on this much longer. Again, I think within the family office kind of people that have some level of a global footprint and create original content, I'm just shocked how there's like so little on real creative intellectual thought on geopolitical issues. I'm hosting a program for my members, my marquee event of the year in Palm Beach, which I do every year. Geopolitics and the intersection of AI are anchored to it. And I'm bringing in some of the most incredible names and thought leaders, not to anchor in ideas, to actively have discussions, debates, maybe a little yelling and screaming. Like, why have we gotten so soft? Like, we're afraid of that. And when it's over, you hug it out and you move on. I look at some of the agendas of other programs that have happened, actually, of course, in South Florida, given the season that we're in here in the US, both recently in the past and upcoming, and they keep away from this subject. They are so afraid of it. And then I look at their agendas in AI, and it's just very surface level. So yes, I've been screaming on this mountaintop for a while now. I'm already being proven right, at least on the AI part of it. Like, do you see what's happening? I told you in my recap of February that someone with a $20 a month Anthropic and OpenAI was able to have a massive hack of the Mexican government. That's the 13th biggest government by GDP in the world. And that was with cheap stuff that you have access to. What's like the threats that we're going to face and the risk and the impact on our companies, and Jack Dorsey's block letting go of 40% of the workforce and getting better and their stock going up, the impact of AI agents and maybe millions of them in companies 24/7, what is that, 168 hours a week? Like, how could you not see this? The impact on the family offices internally and their portfolios is huge, huge. So yes, I'm going to scream a little bit about it. No one else is. I want to be chased by a lion on this. I want a second and a third competitor that forces me to sharpen my iron and get even better. Like, where is it within the family office world? It's all just superficial. Creating my own apps, working with OpenAI, OpenClaw, experimenting, failing, getting frustrated, and then sharing my experience with my members, what works, what doesn't work, and the AI masterclasses that I host multiple times a year in person with the greatest instructors in the world, often family principals doing real amazing things, and people bringing their children, because this is just so impactful. And I mentioned that a little bit last night. So yes, geopolitics are beyond important for family offices. The US, for 3 years running by the bank surveys, by far the number one concern, and rightfully so, of family offices. US families are a little more lagging in that, but it still is easily a top 3. And just the AI pictures getting so overlooked. And your traditional events and structures built on a legacy model that is not adaptive in their thinking and just often sponsor after sponsor, you're not getting good content. I know this makes me hated by some. You know, the guy with the beard is a little loud. Like, I put my mind to work and think for myself on these things. And I share, at least with my members, what I do. And again, what's not working, where I failed. Like, there's an adage I learned from an incredible billionaire about 5 years ago. I'll share it with you. He asked, it was his son, this, who I think was 13 or 14. At the end of the day, what did you fail at today? Now, maybe if you're failing at the same thing over and over, it's not a good sign. And we want to have some successes too. But you get the big picture of that. Where are you going out on a limb, mitigating and managing risk? So God forbid you don't want to die or get seriously hurt. But like, you're young. Like, this is the time. You got to seize that opportunity. What are you waiting for? So yes, I will give it great thought and bring up issues around geopolitics, Trump, macroeconomics, our debt, AI. Do you only want to go to family office programs and hear about what funds to invest in to get your 6 or 7%? To hear the same things about lender versus the IRS, the same things you've been hearing all the time, and a lot of family governance people that can't solve their own family problems, yet they're looking to solve yours. Yet you're happy. That's good content. You're kidding me. This is the most consequential time in history, and it's playing out right before our eyes. This is the time. Everyone, I'm Angelo Robles. Some of you know me for many decades, the founder of Family Office Association, sold that several years ago, kind of retired, kept active in my social medias, did some consulting for families around the world, travel and spoke around the world, and have a chance, not beholden to investors or a board or a legacy structure, to create something new where I could be more open and honest and more raw in terms of what I'm doing, and I think uniquely, good or bad, within the family office community. If you go to angelorobles.com, my website, you can learn more. Just this week, we picked up 3 new members, partially driven by my Palm Beach event, which will be so incredible as next week. And it's poof, it's like instant access to be a part of it. And no, I don't put the agenda online because I don't want to get crashed, but a lot of the families that are speaking want to keep their names private. Like, I want 100 incredible members. I don't want 1,000. I don't want 10,000. I'm not looking to be the biggest. I'm looking to be a group of incredible peers where we learn, again, iron sharpens iron. We have disagreements. We come from different political perspectives, different areas around the world. That's okay. That's encouraged. What happened to this community in the family office world? Like, to me, it's just gone effectively way more downhill. So go to angelorobles.com, learn more. And if you think membership could be a fit, it's pretty simple. You'll know what to do. And then, yes, you could be a part of next week, March 16th through 19th in Palm Beach. But it's far deeper than that. Come on, I got 2 700-page handbooks, my family office playbook, my billionaire mastermind book, proprietary videos, content, monthly member gatherings online, programs in person, breakfast and roundtables in New York. And what I'm doing after Palm Beach, and before it was Miami, but after it, LA, Newport, New York City, Vienna, Cayman Islands, maybe other locations. And I'm not saying they're huge, they're intimate, but we go deep. You're just getting a little bit of surface level that I'm giving away more optically here in public, but the deeper dives. So I hope you enjoyed it. I know for some of you, like, Angelo, we don't hear this kind of conversation on LinkedIn if you're watching this live there or other platforms. And I don't know if it's a level of ignorance or fear about talking about these really, really important subjects, admitting that I don't have all the answers and throwing what I have in my mind and my thoughts out there and wanting to get feedback from you. DM me, email me, text me. I don't have all the answers. I want to learn. And if you really want to be a part of something, go to angelorobles.com and join and become a member. Everyone, almost 8 o'clock here. I'm live a lovely Tuesday night. I have lots to do this week, by the way. Tomorrow at 4 o'clock, Dr. Craig Kaplan, brilliant AI scientist since the 80s and a retired hedge fund manager. He combines deep AI thought leadership, knows all the models inside and out. He's going to be incredible tomorrow. Many of my members have already met him. And talking about, again, he was a successful hedge fund manager. We're going to, combining that knowledge with investing is going to be great. And then Thursday live at 11 o'clock, V. Polis, an incredible thought leader on the digital ecosystem, NFTs, blockchain, tokenization. And I haven't done a really deep dive on that with a special guest, at least more publicly, in a couple of years. So enough of my solos, probably for this week. 2 incredible interviews. I appreciate all of you. Then I'm off to Palm Beach for a while. I may do a couple of quick lives there, 5 or 10 minutes. We'll see. Members who are active in what I do, I'll see you, most all of you, in Palm Beach, and it's going to be incredible. I want it to be game-changing and make a real impact. If that's all you do for the year, I want that to be, with me at least, incredibly impactful. I give you, whether it's good or bad, I give you all that I got. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you. Look forward to my interviews this week and see some of you in Palm Beach next week. Thank you.